Have you ever heard of the 10% edge? It's the idea that you don't have to be the world's leading expert in something to help people understand it. You just need to know 10% more than the average person to help them. Your unique experiences, hard-earned wisdom, and practical know-how can be a lot more valuable than you think. In this episode of Think Inside the Square, we're exploring how you can transform your knowledge and experience into valuable online education and why I think you should. Welcome to Think Inside the Square, a podcast full of tips and tricks to help you build a website that you're proud of. I'm your host, Becca Harping, Squarespace expert and educator, and in this episode, we're talking about online education. For a transcript of this episode, along with the links to the many resources I'll be mentioning, be sure to visit insidethesquare.co/podcast. The term Squarespace is a trademark of Squarespace Incorporated. This content is not affiliated with Squarespace Incorporated. If you have a website, odds are you have a business or at least something that you're passionate about, something that you want to share with the world. But how do you actually teach it, and should you? Maybe your industry is full of professionals who already teach a lot of courses about what you're passionate about. Maybe you've dismissed the idea because you thought that no one would want to learn what you have to share. Well, I've got news for you, friend. You're exactly the person who should be teaching. I want you to think back to your favorite subject in school. Did you have a history or a science class that was super fun? I bet the teacher made all the difference. Your twist on your topic might be what it takes for it to click for someone else. Your unique experiences, your hard-earned wisdom, your practical know-how, all of that can be packaged into online education that could transform someone's life or business, and that's pretty exciting. So in this episode, we're going to cover how you can organize your expertise, even if you think you don't have any. We'll talk about how you can turn your knowledge into a structured course, how to overcome some common roadblocks, and how to leverage existing content that you have to create an amazing course using the features built into Squarespace. But more than just practical tips, this episode is about empowering you to share your unique perspective with the world. I want you to recognize the value in your journey and the insights that you've gained along the way. This episode is going to be a high level of all of these concepts of turning your expertise into education. And in the show notes, I'm going to have links to some amazing additional resources that have helped me create successful courses for my business. But for right now, let's go ahead and get started by creating a map of your core areas of expertise. I want you to take a piece of paper, and in the very center of that piece of paper, draw a circle, and inside that circle, I want you to write a core area of expertise. Something that you're confidently knowledgeable about. Now, from that core area of expertise, I then want you to draw a line and create another circle. And in that circle, I want you to write a slightly more detailed version of that area of expertise. What's a topic related to that you could write a blog post about, that you could give a TED Talk about, that you could at least chat about for more than 20 minutes if you're hanging out with a friend at a party? Talk about that sub area of expertise that's related to your core area of expertise. Here's a great example for you from my own perspective. I'm a Squarespace designer, and I love talking about Squarespace features. That could be my main circle right there. Then that next circle that I branch out to could be customizing Squarespace. And then from there, you guessed it, we're going into another circle. I could talk about customizing Squarespace with CSS. On this piece of paper, I want you to create as many branches to new circles as you can to really develop a true map of your area of expertise. This is going to give you this bird's eye view visual of the content that you can share with your audience. Once you've mapped this out to a degree that you're comfortable with, I want you to look at some of the circles there and see how many of them are related. For my own example, I love to talk about Squarespace, and then we're talking about customizing Squarespace, and then we're talking about custom CSS. And when we're talking about custom CSS, we can talk about borders and background colors and button hover effects. And as you can see, my mind map starts to get really big. This activity can help boost your confidence in the skills and knowledge that you have. And again, you'll start to get this visual representation of underlying themes where you can combine these topics into an epic piece of online education. Now, it's easy for me to share this from the Squarespace perspective, so let me give you another perspective for a different type of business. Let's say you're a nutritionalist and you write nutrition in the main circle on your piece of paper. For the next branch, you might have something about meal planning and you might have something about macronutrients. Those could be two additional circles. From those circles, let's say the macronutrient circle, you can have a section that is what macronutrients are, the role of protein, the importance of carbohydrate, how to balance macronutrients while you're traveling. You've got a lot of different subjects there. Then you think about the meal planning aspect and you could realize, wait a second, I could talk about meal planning with macronutrients in mind. There you can start to see some crossovers between the different areas of expertise, and having this bird's eye view of your own knowledge map is so helpful in piecing that together. All right, now that we've got your knowledge organized, let's talk about turning this into a course structure. This is where your course really starts to take shape. First things first, we need to define what your students will achieve by the end of your course. I like to call these your course objectives. Take a few minutes to write down 3 to 5 clear, actionable objectives for your course. These are going to be your guiding stars while you create your content. Plus, this will help potential students understand the value of your course right off the bat. So we have your knowledge map, we have the destination for what you can teach your students. So how do we bridge that gap? What do they need to know to get to that final point? Generally, you want to start by sharing foundational concepts and then move towards more advanced topics. But don't stress if you need to shuffle things around a few times. Finding the right flow is a process, and it's going to take a few tries to get it right. This is when I like to bust out the Post-it notes. I'll take the Post-it notes and maybe I'll start with one color and I'll write all of the foundational concepts on individual Post-it notes in one color. And then when I move on to advanced concepts, I'll grab another color of Post-it notes and I'll write down the advanced concepts there. Having all of the things I want to teach listed out on Post-it notes so I can easily rearrange them and put them in the order I want them to be in can help me structure that content. And again, it's going to take you a few tries to get it right. That's why Post-it notes are so helpful for this part right here. Now, inside Squarespace, you can organize your course content into sections that are known as chapters, and then lessons, which are like individual pages inside those chapters. The structure provided by the Squarespace course feature helps you organize your content in a way that's going to be easy for your students to navigate. So you've created your knowledge map, you have your overall course objectives, and you've outlined your course structure. Let's talk about actually creating the content for your course, starting with that course structures, the chapters and the lessons. For each lesson, I want you to write a brief description of what you'll cover. It doesn't have to be long, and it won't be something read by anyone else. This is just a sentence or two to capture the main idea. Now, underneath that sentence, I want you to think about 1 to 2 key objectives that you are going to teach. These are the core concepts that your students will understand when they complete this lesson. This step is really helpful for keeping your content focused and make sure that you're covering everything you need to cover to get them to those final objectives. Now, this is where it gets fun. I want you to start thinking about any activities, quizzes, or resources that you want to include in each lesson. Maybe you need to make a worksheets for students to apply what they've learned, or a quick quiz to check their understanding. This is where you can start to dig into the content that you've already created. Think about any popular blog post where you've explained a concept to your audience and it really resonated with them. Think about any Instagram reels or posts that you created where you conveyed content in a way that your audience really appreciated. Maybe one of your most popular Instagram posts was a checklist. Think about incorporating checklists into your course. Think about the existing content that you've created that have really resonated with your audience to see how you can apply that to your course. Now, one more thing I want you to do is to try and estimate how long each lesson will take to complete. Try to aim for about 10 to 20 minutes for each individual lesson, because honestly, once it gets over 20 minutes, that lesson becomes a little too long. This will help your content stay digestible and prevent overwhelm for your students. Now, some of the lessons might end up seeming a little too short, and that's okay. This is your chance to adjust those. Maybe you need to combine 2 lessons into one. Maybe one lesson needs to be broken out into 2. The goal is to create balanced, manageable learning experiences for your students. All right, now you might be thinking, Becca, this all sounds great, but what if I get stuck? What if I sit down to create my content and my mind goes blank? Don't worry, my friend. Even the most experienced course creators hit roadblocks sometimes. This is totally normal, and I've got some tricks up my sleeve to help you overcome them. Now let's talk about some common roadblocks you might be facing here. One big problem of mine is perfectionism. I know that perfectionism has stopped me from moving forward with exciting things in my business, and I'm pretty determined to not let that happen anymore. I've decided to adopt the mindset that done is better than perfect, and I want you to do the same. Your first course does not have to be a masterpiece. You can always improve it and update it later. The most important thing is to get started. And I can tell you that after making many spelling mistakes and having broken link issues, the best way to get your course closer to perfect is to launch the not perfect version and let your students give you feedback. So to overcome perfectionism, be willing to accept feedback and be confident in moving forward, knowing that you're going to make mistakes and that's okay. Another roadblock that you might hit is imposter syndrome. That's when you start thinking, who am I to teach this? What if people realize I don't know everything? Here's the secret. Nobody knows everything, and some people out there will know more than you on some topics. But that's when it's so important to look at that visual map that we created of your core areas of expertise to see that you do have that 10% edge. You do know just a little bit more than the average person about that topic, and your personality and experience is what's going to make your education incredibly important for them. You've got valuable knowledge to share, and there are people out there who need to learn from you. There's one more roadblock that I want to address, and that is overwhelm. Sometimes you might be overwhelmed by the sheer amount of content that you need to create. When this happens, take a deep breath and remember, you don't have to do it all at once. Focus on creating one lesson or one module at a time. I'm going to let you in on a little pro tip of mine. I am a content creator, and I create a lot of content here inside the Square. At the time of recording this, I'm a one-woman show. It's me putting together the tutorials, the blog posts, editing the videos, creating the podcast. I do all of this myself. And when I get overwhelmed with the amount of content that I need to create, here's what I like to do. I like to grab a stack of Post-it notes and a Sharpie, and I will write an individual project or thing on my to-do list on every single Post-it note. I get one for each project. Once I've got most of the major important things out of my brain and onto those Post-it notes, I like to organize them by how time-sensitive they are. What are the things that I need to do first? I'll scoot those Post-it notes to the top, and here's where the magic happens. I take the 3 most important and urgent Post-it notes, and I go into my office and I stick those 3 Post-it notes on my computer monitor, and I do not get up from my desk until I'm done with those 3. When I'm done with those 3, I take them off my monitor, I do a little stretch, I go back to my stack of Post-it notes, and I grab 3 more and do it again. Because the truth is that all of this stuff does need to get done, but freaking out about it and trying to organize it and trying to find the best system, that's not how it's going to get done. The only way I'm going to get through a big project and the sheer amount of to-dos on my to-do list is to focus on one thing at a time. Speaking of focus, I should probably wrap this episode up and give you a concise recap of all the things that we talked about. But before we do that, I've got one Squarespace tip that I just have to sneak in here. And this has to do with creating the course content inside your Squarespace website. Squarespace has a unique page type that is specifically for creating course content. It's a collection of lessons, and these lessons are organized inside chapters. Now, there's some cool features for this unique type of Squarespace page. There is a progress bar and a sidebar. For people that have logged in to access the course, they can keep track of their progress on the progress bar to see how much further they have to study. They also have a sidebar for easy navigation on lesson pages. Now, each lesson is focused on video content, but you don't have to have video content. All of these lesson pages are made up of page sections, so you can add as much or as little content as you'd like to each individual lesson. But here is the secret. I myself have multiple courses on my Squarespace website, and I do use the course feature for some of them, but I put all of my courses into a member area, and here's why. Each one of my courses has a collection of resources, and the Squarespace course page does not have a resource section. So inside my Squarespace website, I have a member area that acts like a folder of content. Inside that folder, you'll find the course full of lessons organized into chapters, and you'll also find a portfolio of projects. These individual projects are actually additional resources that can supplement the content of the course. So when you're adding your education to Squarespace and you've got more to share with your students than what you can fit into lessons and chapters, create a member area. This will act like a folder that only your students can access when they log in. And inside this folder, you can include all kinds of content you want that will complement your course. All right, we covered a lot today, and you should be really proud of yourself for making it this far in the episode. Now you've got a solid plan for creating a course that you can feature on your Squarespace website. But I know that all this information can be a little overwhelming, so I want to break this down into an action plan for you. Are you ready? Okay, here's what I want you to do next. First things first, create your knowledge map. Get all that expertise out of your head and onto a piece of paper. The second step is to define your course objectives. What do you want your students to be able to do by the end of your course? The third step is to outline your course structure. Decide on your lessons and group them into chapters. Help take your students on a flow from foundational content to advanced content that will help them achieve those course objectives. Step number 4, audit your existing content. What blog posts or other materials can you repurpose for your course? What content types have you shared that have really resonated with your audience, and how can you use that to create your course content? Step number 5, create your course content and add it to Squarespace. Remember, you can create a member area that not only uses the course feature, but has additional resources available as additional pages. The last step I want you to do is to test your course flow and make adjustments as needed. You might want to ask a friend to go through it and give you some feedback. Make sure that the journey you're taking people on really does make sense to someone who doesn't have your area of expertise. Just remember that creating a course is a journey. Take it one step at a time and don't be afraid to adjust as you go along. We're working in Squarespace here, and Squarespace can be edited at literally any time. You're not going to get it right the first time, but you're definitely not going to get it right if you don't even start. Remember that your course will keep getting better and better, so I want to encourage you to really give this a try. Your knowledge is valuable, and there are people out there who can't wait to learn from you. Now, if you're feeling excited about diving deeper into course creation, and I really hope you are, I want you to check out the awesome freebies that I have listed inside the show notes for this episode. Head on over to insidethesquare.co/podcast/56. This is episode 56. There you'll find the show notes for this episode and links to all kinds of epic resources. And at this point, if you're feeling overwhelmed with all the content that you have to create, just remember, you take it one post-it note at a time. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Think Inside the Square. I truly hope you enjoyed it. Again, check out the show notes for more information on creating a course using Squarespace. You'll find that at insidethesquare.co/podcast. And most importantly, have fun with your Squarespace website. Bye for now.